With what's happening now, and with this being an election year, I wanted to shoot a review of the documentary Black, White, and Blue. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar. This is Big Discussions 76 Entertainment and Media. Please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. Well, with what's happening now in society, I wanted to shoot a review of Curtis Scoon's documentary Black, White, and Blue. I actually downloaded it off of Amazon shortly after it was released in 2018. But with the movie theaters being closed, and having to look in other places for media to discuss here on my channel, it just dawned on me that I could and should do a review of Black, White, and Blue. It's highly relevant, and as independent media, it falls under the purview of this particular channel, which I'm trying to grow. But before I get into the movie and into my review, I want to say a few words about its creator. I discovered Curtis Scoon on Twitter a few years ago and instantly became a fan, and admittedly a bit of a groupie. I see him as a very strong man, very knowledgeable, and very unapologetically masculine. He discusses things that I believe in and things that I think about all the time. And he, one of the things that really impresses me is that he is unfazed by the blowback he gets for voicing his opinions and thoughts on things. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that on Twitter and a lot of that on social media, and you have to be willing to deal with that. But he's unfazed by the blowback, and he seems to enjoy the blowback, and he seems to enjoy the banter with his critics. So that, that very much has impressed me. He's an independent, politically, and in real life. In his real life, he's an independent thinker, and he's also a self-made man who believes in building and not necessarily relying on others to build. If I recall correctly, this film, Black, White, and Blue, I believe he funded this project entirely, or for the most part, by himself. So I would also encourage viewers to go check out his Unscripted channel. There he's done interviews with Jason Whitlock, Mash Teray, and Judge Joe Brown. And much of what you will hear in those interviews, particularly the interview with Judge Joe Brown, will surprise you, or should I say may surprise you, and may shock you, as these are things that aren't discussed openly and readily in the mainstream media. So these are things about President Barack Obama and his origins and his connections to the Bushes and those kinds of things. I won't get into it here. You should go and watch yourself if you're interested. So that's a little bit about Curtis and how I found Curtis. And, at some point, if my platforms get big enough, I might be interested in, actually not might, I would be interested in talking to Curtis one-on-one and interviewing him. So Curtis, if you're watching this, there's a little plug there. So I watched Black, White, and Blue when I first downloaded it, and I looked at it again last night, and I took some extensive notes here. And hearing my brother Amal's voice here in my ear, I had to think about the important points to address from what I saw, while not giving the entire documentary away. And I'm going to leave the link to the documentary in the description box below. You can buy it or rent it off Amazon. And so with that, I'm going to get into my review and overview of the movie / documentary. So if you haven't, please like this video. The more likes this video gets, the higher it will go in Google's and YouTube's algorithm. And again, the more likes will help my channel ascend in YouTube's algorithm. And best of all, the likes are free. So there's a lot in this hour and 16-minute documentary, which is actually narrated by Curtis himself. And you may have to watch it several times just to get everything, as there are many individuals interviewed, and there's just a lot of perspectives shared in the documentary. Who was in it? Well, I want to say pretty much everybody. Charlemagne the God is in it. Killer Mike. Lord Jamar from Brand Nubian. Coleman A. Young Jr. And speaking of which, there is a Coleman A. Young Jr. Foundation, which I believe Curtis helped start. I'm going to leave the link to the foundation in the description box below in case you want to see what they're doing and make a donation. Being a University of Michigan graduate myself, I have some Detroit connections and some Detroit roots. So I've made a donation to the foundation thus far, and I'll probably make several, as I believe in what they're doing and I want to help them out as much as possible. So others in the documentary that I was unfamiliar with are individuals like Karen Dumas, who I believe was a Detroit area radio personality, and Dr. Randy Short, among others. So keep in mind as you're watching Black, White, and Blue that much of what's discussed in the documentary is not covered in the mainstream media, or maybe covered in bits and pieces. And so so I believe that it's important. One of my main messages is that it's important to look at alternative media and look at the different digital spaces to get an accurate picture of what's going on in our world, because the mainstream media is not going to tell you everything, and what they do tell you oftentimes is slanted in one direction or the other. And it's in the digital spaces and on social media where I first discovered Curtis. So the documentary starts in Baltimore with the murder of Freddie Gray, and it takes us to Ferguson, to Detroit, to Flint, to New York City, and it discusses things like police brutality, Black Lives Matter, the economics of Detroit, the Flint water crisis, and the history and true nature of politics in America, particularly presidential politics, though it does say things about politics at the state level and the municipal levels as well. What stood out to me were the commentaries about police brutality. And these conversations have been happening for a while now, particularly in the Black communities. But there is some commentary from actual law enforcement itself in the documentary. What's also very relevant for today is that the origins of the Black Lives Matter movement is discussed, and how and what its potential roots were going back as far as the 1950s and the 1960s. So Black Lives Matter and its true mission are being discussed readily right now, and a lot of Black people are actually diverging from the organization and are of the opinion that it's not for us. So the origins of the organization and its manifesto are discussed in detail in this documentary. It goes into the true nature of presidential politics, and towards the end, there are some interesting comments from a Latina named Elsa Quintanilla. She has some choice words for Hillary Clinton. She had some choice words for Hillary Clinton around the 2016 election, which is interesting because it was thought that Hispanics and Latinos were under attack by Donald Trump. And so I think one of the things people had a hard time reconciling is why Hispanics and Latinos would vote for President Trump. Around that same part of the documentary, there are some comments by a black gentleman named Brian K. Smith, who is an entrepreneur and a business owner. And he said that he readily endorses President Donald Trump and endorses his agenda. And that's another thing I think a lot of people have a hard time piecing together and reconciling, is why black people would endorse and follow President Donald Trump. And so it turns out that there are people, and Coleman A. Young says this in the documentary, that there are factions of black people who are willing to turn down the volume on some of the things President Trump says because they believe in his economic agenda and the economic benefits of his agenda. And so finally, the documentary ends with some discussion of President Donald Trump and his election, and who President Trump was actually speaking to during his 2016 election. But I'm going to say that viewers, if you watch Black, White, and Blue, you should also go ahead and look at Curtis's interview with Judge Joe Brown, because I think that balances it out a little more. And again, regarding President Trump, some of the things you'll hear about President Trump in that Judge Joe Brown interview will probably shock you and surprise you. So I'll leave that right there. In general, I think that Black, White, and Blue is a very balanced perspective on what's happening now. And we don't have that right now in the mainstream media. Again, everything is slanted to this direction or slanted to that direction. And so while Black, White, and Blue talks about police brutality and stop and frisk, I believe there are comments from either Charlemagne the God or Killer Mike saying that we need more black police officers to police black neighborhoods. And that may potentially decrease the friction that we see between the general public and law enforcement. I would urge viewers to particularly pay attention to Dr. Randy Short's commentaries in Black, White, and Blue, and also in Curtis's Unscripted interview with him. Some of the things that he says, just like the things that Judge Joe Brown says, may shock you and surprise you. And I think just in general, Curtis either saw all of this coming or he just had his finger on the pulse of what was happening. I don't know that he knew that George Floyd would be murdered the way that he was, or that there would be another groundswell for Black Lives Matter. But in some ways, Black, White, and Blue very much predicted what's happening now. So I'm going to give this self-funded project 5 stars for its transparency and its balance, which again we don't have in the mainstream media. And again, a lot of the news that we see is slanted, and so I think that individuals who are only looking at the mainstream media, CNN, MSN, and Fox News, I think that those people are at a disadvantage because they're only seeing a message that's prepared like a meal in a kitchen, and they're not seeing anything else. And so those people were surprised in 2016 when President Donald Trump was elected but there were other discussions taking place in other parts, in other digital spaces, and in other parts of our country. So I want to close this by saying that Curtis and his team did not ask me to shoot this, but I think, again, that it's highly relevant for what's happening right now and for the upcoming election. And I would encourage everyone to watch Black, White, and Blue, if for no other reason than to be informed when November comes around. I think that, I don't know, I think our citizens just need to be more informed about the issues and the histories of these things and these parties, and not just default to their tribal politics and views. Again, this documentary was highly relevant for this channel, which I'm trying to grow, and I do believe in independent media. So I'm going to stop this here. Please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments in the comment section below. I'm going to leave the links once again to Curtis's to this documentary on Amazon, and if I can find it, I'll leave the link to Curtis's Unscripted YouTube channel as well, where you can see the interviews with Jason Whitlock, Maj Toure, Judge Joe Brown, and Randy Short. So once again, please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.